What's up? We're here at the Fredricton Regional with Joshua Kirby. What'd you play today? How'd you do?
I played Dragonlink Fiendsmith today, mostly like Bystial stuff, I guess, but I got third place, and yeah, it went pretty well. I went X1.
Right on, man. Is there any shout-outs you want to give before we get into the deck profile?
Biggest shout-outs to Max for coming up with the idea of the deck and working with me on this deck a lot. Super helpful in like testing ideas and coming up with, I don't know, this is a pretty cool deck. Like this is like something I've really enjoyed cooking with the last little bit. And Jeremy bouncing ideas off him, he was super helpful. They both played the deck as well. And gave me a lot of feedback on the different ideas and stuff for it. And then shoutouts to Mr. Hong, Brian, and Angus.
Right on. Right. Let's get into it.
All right, so for starters, 3 Seyfert, then 3 Black Metal. Black Metal is like the better starter because Black Metal can get you like the Fiendsmith engine and then still have like an extender afterwards because we played the Red Eyes, Darkness Metal, and the Meteor. So you can get to Moon just off these cards and then you'll still have another extender to keep doing more stuff after, like making a Caesar or something to really blow up into a bigger field. It just gets a lot of advantage. Then we played all the Bystials, like all the real Bystials anyways. So we played 3 Lubellion, Magnamut, 3 Saronir, 3 Druisworm, and 3 Baldric. So one of the really cool things about this deck is you're just playing all the Bystials plus a bunch of other hand traps, and these cards with the Fiendsmith cards are like very live engine because your Fiendsmith cards will get you a lot of like extra lights engraved to make these cards playable engine cards, which yeah, it was really good. We played the Black Chaos Dragon and the White. These are like your safer targets, basically. They're okay. We played the full Fiendsmith engine, so 3 Engraver, Lurie, and kind of skip ahead here, Detract. These cards, like I said, are like very, very solid in this deck. They fuel your grave with lights, which is really important because it makes your Bystials able to make like autumn lines, which really can like blow up your fields and make like very strong fields with like Seal, IP, Regained. It gets you access to a lot of different things, and it also puts up Caesar very early, so when people have like nibs or imperm nibs and stuff like that, they have to use them like very early in your plays. So they basically have to use it like once you threaten like a Caesar plus like a Lubellion, then you're getting hit with like an imperm nib. But at that point you have like lots of cards in play that if you have like any 2 Bystials, you can still do an autumn line, you can still extend very frequently, so you can beat multiple hand traps like really nicely with this deck, which is something I really like. Then we also played for hand traps. We played 3 Ash, 3 Veiler, did this over Imperm just because it pairs a lot better with the Bystials. Then 3 Nib, and then the Gamma and the Driver, which you need to play a vanilla anyways for the Meteor, and this card is just very good, goes without saying. And then lastly, the last 4 spells, so there's 5 spells total with the track. The 2 really broken one-ofs. This card's like insane. This card just gets you to Black Metal without like a normal summon, or it can give you the Lurie if you already have access to Black Metal, so this card's like super broken. Branded Regained, and then Ravine. This card was like kind of a fringe card, but we ended up playing it. It's like the 43rd card. You don't probably need to play it, but there's a lot of hands that get blown up. Like you can make much bigger fields if you play this card, and it can get you like Lubellion access. It makes your follow-up a lot better. There's just spots where if you have a lot of engine, you can do more with it with this card. Then I'll do the extra deck next, I guess.
You said 43 card main?
43 in the main, yeah. We played Striker Dragon, just as like a link to be able to link into. The 1 Seal, you only need 1. You don't need to play more than that in this deck. IP, this is for like just being able to make like bigger fields and stuff. A lot of times you'll have like bodies that you can use with this, and ending on like Seal IP with a Regained is just actually just like a very cracked board. The SP to make with IP, or you can make it through Striker a lot, which is really nice. Romulus for getting to Ravine. The Fiendsmith cards. So for the Fiendsmith package, all I played was the Requiem, the Moon, Necroquip, and then basically like this card here in this deck is so like broken. There's so many ways to trigger this and get draws between Ravine, Lubellion. There's just like a ton of ways to like get a ton of value out of this card with all the Dragonlink cards and the Bystials. So there's a lot of times where you're just like drawing an extra card, you get to make a Caesar, then you can go for a Tum and end on like Seal, IP, Caesar, Regain, and you draw like so many cards with this deck between this, Regained, that it's actually like you can get to a lot of non-engine, which is really important because this deck does struggle sometimes versus like the board breaker Tempai type decks. So having ways to see your non-engine, especially post side, is like very valuable. And then we played this as well. This card's all right. There's just a couple matchups where this card is kind of cheeks. And there's some matchups where if you're playing versus the decks that are going to throw like evenlies and stuff at you, or you're playing versus like a weird flunder deck or something weird, runic, whatever, sometimes this card's better. Caesar's almost always better because you want to have it to like insulate your field through nibs, as well as also just like it is like a very insane interrupt. Like even versus like Tempai, like if you have Caesar and they don't have a non-engine card to get rid of this, like it's really hard for them to ever be able to kill you through this card because it just cuts off 2 of their lines and they don't have that many lines. Tom, this card's nuts in this, especially with the Fiendsmith stuff. The Fiendsmith stuff that gives you like the extra lights. Any 2 Bystials just lets you get to like Seyfert, then you can make Romulus, get Ravine. Like the Seyfert gets you Chaos Dragons, like you have Lubellion access that way. Like it does so much for this deck with the Fiendsmith cards that this card's like super broken. Then Chaos Angel, also very broken. You get to make the light dark Chaos Angel a lot with this because you have the Bystials, you have the Chaos Dragons, you have the Fiendsmith cards. A lot of ways to make a late dark one of these, and this card's just like excellent removal as well. And then lastly, in the side, we play the Ultimate Slayer. So we played Entis, Garua, and this guy to have for targets. I guess I'll get to the side and I'll talk about Ultimate Slayer a bit more then, but those targets were all pretty good for the respective matchups that we wanted it for. For the side, 3 Chummy, this card's insane, you should play this in every deck. 3 Droll. Droll is more so for like the bad matchups for this deck, or the decks that are just like, this is very high impact against, that like there isn't, like there's decks like Flunder and like the White Forest Runic deck that like if you don't play this card, you can draw other combinations of hand traps and you're just like, it's just impossible to win going second, and you need this specific card for those matchups to like just have a better shot. So I think this card should be played in a lot of decks, but there's just not a lot of good cards in the matchups that this card's really good into. We played 3 Ultimate Slayer, mostly for the Yubel matchup because this card's just insane. Like you play so many hand traps in this deck that you can really make them end on like a really shitty half board or like just a Phantom Pass a lot of the time. And then this card can clean up multiple threats, or it can clean up a threat and get you a draw and get you like more engine. Like this card just actually does so much. Like we were mostly siding this into like every matchup, just because it's just the fact that it can get you a draw off Garua by sending the Garua or the Link monster to get to Garua, or you can pop 2 cards, and it's just very good against like a lot of decks right now. If you play versus Tempai, you can make them start, and it's just like FTKs them if they don't draw Shifter, so it's very, very broken. And then the last 6 cards in the side were all just like one-of cards that we wanted to play because Tempai is a really tough matchup for this deck because a lot of the Bystials, a lot of your non-engine are like not great into Tempai, so you need to play more specific, powerful non-engine to deal with the ways that they're interacting with you. The call by you need versus everything because this deck is very weak to Chummy, or the Mulcharmy Borrelia. You need this card. You don't have a lot of ways to beat it outside of like Ash, this, and like drawing Gamma. So it gives you more outs to that. This card is just the best card versus Tempai versus most decks. Like you just sit on Bystials plus this and you're just gonna eventually grind out anything. Anti-spell is for like very good versus the Yubble deck, as well as like any of the other like basically everything. And then D-Barrier for Tempai. And actually this card just like overlaps for so many random rogue decks that like it's just like the highest impact card you can play versus a bunch of decks. And there's really like no card like that does what this does in the matchups it's good versus. Like it's something that like you can draw terrible and like still skip turns with this. Whereas like even sometimes with these cards, like you don't skip their turn if they just have like every deck will have engine that can play into this sometimes. So yeah. That's a bit of the theory behind it. It was really good. We had a lot of fun playing it. I had a lot of fun with this deck, testing with the guys on this because there was a lot of ideas we bounced. We went through a lot of different iterations of it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Right on, man. Thanks for the profile and congrats to the top.
Thanks, man.